Why would an innocent woman sacrifice her life by burning herself with her husband's statue? Why does King Victor, despite being an emperor, have to work for another king? Will King Victor be able to bring a dead woman back to life? This story is extremely interesting, so make sure to watch till the end. Let's get started. A priest lived in a town with his wife. His wife was a devoted woman. Although the priest worked for the king never assigned him any tasks. Every month, the king would simply send the priest's salary without asking him for any work. Over time, the priest became concerned. One day, he spoke to his wife. "I've been receiving the king's money for so long, but he never asks me to do anything. How will I be free from this burden?" After some thought, the priest's wife suggested, "You should go to King Victor. Tell him you want to do something to earn your living so you can be free from this debt." The priest took her advice and went to King Victor, explaining his situation. The king replied, "I have a vow that I don't take any work from priests. But since you insist, here's what you can do. There is a beautiful crystal lake 500 miles away. Go there, bathe in the lake, and bring me some water. That will be your task." The priest was overjoyed and went back home to tell his wife. She was upset at first, but said, "Dear, if you leave, how will I eat or drink without seeing you? My rule is that I don't consume anything without seeing you first." The priest then had a statue of himself made and placed it in their home, so his wife could pray and offer food to the statue in his absence. He reassured her and left for the lake. Days passed, and every day the priest's wife continued with her routine. She would offer food and prayers to the statue of her husband, feeling comforted by it as if he were still there. But one unfortunate day, disaster struck. A fire broke out in the neighborhood, and it spread quickly. The flames raced toward the priest's house, and his wife could see the smoke rising from a distance. In a panic, she rushed to the statue of her husband and called out, "Dear, the house is on fire. Please come quickly and save us." But the statue remained still, unmoving as statues do. The fire grew more intense, consuming everything in its path. Desperate, the woman continued pleading, "Please come out, the fire is here." But her cries went unanswered, and in the end, the woman, unable to escape, was engulfed in the flames, clinging to her husband's statue as she perished. When the priest returned from his journey, he was horrified to hear of the tragedy. His wife, his beloved, was gone, consumed by fire. He rushed back to the palace to confront King Victor, his heart heavy with sorrow and anger. "Your Majesty," the priest cried out in frustration, "my wife, she's gone. She died with my statue, calling out for help. Why didn't you protect her as I asked?" King Victor, seeing the priest's distress, lowered his head. "I'm so sorry for your loss, priest," he said, his voice filled with regret. "I will make amends. If you wish, I can arrange for you to marry another woman, one who is worthy of you, a woman who will care for you." But the priest, consumed by grief and rage, shook his head. "No, king, I don't want another woman. The only one I want is the one who died with my statue. I will not rest until I bring her back. You must find a way to restore her life, or I will end it all right here, at your doorstep, in front of your throne. And remember this, King Victor, you will carry the guilt of 2 innocent lives lost, the lives of my wife and myself." King Victor, knowing the priest was serious, pleaded with him to be calm. "Please, listen to me. I will find a way. I will bring her back to life. I need some time. Give me a month to figure it out." The priest, still seething with anger and grief, finally agreed. "I will give you a month. But if you fail, I swear, I will hold you responsible for her death." And so King Victor, in a state of deep remorse, left his kingdom's affairs to his ministers and embarked on a journey in search of a way to bring the priest's wife back from the dead. Days turned into weeks, and after much searching, he arrived at a small village exhausted from his travels. There, in a humble house, he rested on a cot by the door. Inside the house lived an elderly woman and her daughter-in-law. The elderly woman's son had been missing for many years, and both she and her daughter-in-law were overcome with sorrow, longing for his return. As King Victor rested outside, the daughter-in-law came out and, upon seeing him, paused. She studied him closely, thinking to herself, "This man looks so much like my husband. Could it be him?" Excited, she hurried inside to tell her mother-in-law. "Mother, I think our son has returned. He's sitting outside on the cot. His face and age match perfectly with the description of my husband." The elderly woman, too, rushed outside, hope rising in her heart. She saw King Victor resting there and immediately believed it was her son. "Son, where have you been all this time?" she asked, her voice filled with emotion. "Why didn't you return to us? Do you know how much we've suffered?" King Victor, surprised by her words, quickly explained, "Madam, I am not your son. I am merely a traveler. But if you tell me where your son is, I will do my best to help you find him." The elderly woman, in disbelief, replied, "My son disappeared when he was just 12 years old. He had only been married for a short time before he left. It's been 20 years, and we've heard nothing of him. His wife has grown pale and thin, waiting for him every day." King Victor, moved by the story, asked, "Do you know where he might be, or anyone who could help us find him?" The woman replied, "I've heard rumors that a king named Henry lives in the south. He is known for his generosity, giving away vast sums of gold every day. Some say my son works for him." King Victor, now determined to help, stood up and assured her, "Don't worry, I'll find your son and I'll bring him back to you. Just have faith and I will do everything in my power to reunite you." After hearing the news of Noah's situation, King Victor set out towards the southern direction. Days passed, and after a long journey, he finally arrived in the south. He inquired around and made his way to the royal palace. Reaching the gate, he approached the gatekeeper and said, "Please send a message to Noah that a traveler has come from your village and he wishes to meet him." The gatekeeper passed the message to Noah, who quickly came to the gate, thinking it was just another villager. However, he was surprised when the traveler introduced himself. "Brother, you should not have done this. Since the day you left, your home, your mother, and your wife have been crying. It is your duty to go back to them as soon as possible." Noah replied, "What can I do? I am helpless. The king doesn't grant me leave, nor does he accept my resignation. How can I return?" King Victor smiled and said, "Don't worry about that. I'll take your place at the palace. You go back home and spend time with your family." Noah, relieved, went to King Henry and asked for a leave of absence. "My brother from the village has arrived. He will take my place here. Kindly allow me to return home for a while. My wife and mother are in great distress without me." King Henry, after considering this, agreed. "All right, you may go. Leave your brother here and take a month to visit your family." Noah left for his home, and King Victor began working in his place, even though he was a king himself. King Henry had a strange daily routine. Every night at midnight, he would visit a desolate ruin where a devil lived. The devil would capture him and cook him in a boiling cauldron of oil. Once the king was cooked, the devil would eat him, then gather his bones and sprinkle them with a mysterious elixir that revived him. The king would then leave the ruins, taking a box full of gold and silently distributing it among the poor the next morning. King Victor became curious. Where does this gold come from? And why does the king go to that ruin every night? He wondered. Determined to find out, he decided to follow King Henry one night. As King Henry set off for the ruin, King Victor quietly trailed behind. He hid in a corner of the ruin and watched in shock as the devil cooked King Henry in the boiling cauldron. Moved by the sight, King Victor returned to his own quarters with a heavy heart. He realized that King Henry suffered greatly to bring the gold to his people. The next day, King Victor went to the market and bought various spices, nuts, and fragrant items. When midnight approached, he carved his body in different places and filled the cuts with the spices and nuts. Bearing the pain, he quietly entered King Henry's chamber and, with his magic wand, cast a spell to put the king to sleep. "Stay in this deep slumber until I return," he instructed the wand. After ensuring King Henry was unconscious, King Victor made his way to the ruin. There, the hungry devil quickly grabbed him and tossed him into the cauldron. Once cooked, the devil eagerly ate Victor's flesh, delighted by the exotic spices and nuts. It was the most delicious meal he had ever tasted. After finishing, the devil gathered his bones and revived him using the elixir. "I've never had such delicious meat," the devil said, feeling incredibly satisfied. "You may ask for anything you wish in return for such a treat." King Victor, now revived, asked for 3 favors. "First, I want the elixir that brings life back to the bones. Second, I want the magical box that produces unlimited gold. And third, I wish for you to leave this place and never return." The devil, thrilled with his meal, agreed to all three wishes. He gave King Victor the elixir, the magical box, and departed, never to return. King Victor, carrying the elixir and the box, returned to the palace. He took the magical wand and left King Henry's chamber, knowing his task was almost complete. The next morning, when King Henry awoke and realized that Victor had disappeared, he rushed to the ruin in a panic. Finding the cauldron half filled, he feared the worst. "Where will I get the gold to give away to the poor?" he wondered. As King Henry returned to his palace, distressed, the beggars outside began calling for their donations. "King Henry, it's morning. The poor are waiting for their gold." King Victor, seeing the king's distress, approached and said, "Why are you so downcast? Why aren't you giving gold to the poor?" King Henry shared his worries with Victor, explaining that without the gold, the beggars would think he had fallen into poverty. Victor, with a smile, handed the magical box to King Henry and said, "Take this. You no longer need to go anywhere. The gold is right here in this box." King Henry was astonished. "How did you come by this box?" he asked. Victor explained everything, including how he had come in search of Noah's mother and the struggles she had been through. He told King Henry how he had found Noah and taken his place at the palace. King Henry, deeply moved, fell at Victor's feet. "You are truly a great soul. I cannot thank you enough." Victor, with kindness in his heart, explained, "I am not just a king. I am King Victor of Columbia, and I was on a quest for the elixir of life. When I met Noah's mother, I couldn't ignore her grief, and that led me to find Noah." King Henry, filled with gratitude, thanked Victor again. "You are a noble king. You have done more than anyone could ask for." With that, King Victor bid King Henry farewell, leaving him the magical box, and set off back to Columbia. The month had passed, and he arrived just in time to fulfill his promise. He called the priest to the palace and asked for his wife's ashes. The moment the elixir was sprinkled on her remains, she rose to life, whole and restored. The priest, overcome with emotion, fell at King Victor's feet, thanking him profusely and asking for forgiveness for his previous arrogance. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to hit the like button and make sure to subscribe to the channel for more amazing tales that will inspire and entertain you. Share this video with your friends and family, and let's spread these timeless stories far and wide.